So, welcome to the show, Candice.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I'm really excited to speak to you because you're all about helping people to invest for the future in terms of real estate and financial planning and money and all this great stuff. Your business is called Investor Smarts, so it's all really about getting wise about where you put your money and what you do with that. And with everything in business, it's all the success all comes down to the planning. But before we kind of get into that a little bit, I'd love it if you could share with us how you got to where you are today. What made you start out on your own?
For sure. Thank you. So I was one of those nerdy kids when I was 12 or 13. I was already reading personal finance books, and I always was just kind of trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? Like, my parents were really successful and they had their own business, and my grandparents on both sides were entrepreneurs. And I thought, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do too, but what does that even look like? I had an aunt who was an accountant, and she was one of the few people in my family at that time who had gone to university. And so I kind of looked up to her, and she was a career woman. And I thought, that's what I'm going to be. And so I was working towards becoming an accountant. And so I ended up going to university, did my 4 years of university to become an accountant. And then I was just, when I was 18, I was like, I got to get out of high school. I got to get to university. I got to move on. And I was always looking, what's next? What's next? And I was like, I'm not going to be getting married. I'm not going to have kids. It's just career. And so then I met my now husband and got married at, I always say, almost 20. I was 19. And now we've got 4 kids. So the big life lesson is never say never. So anyway, after university, I didn't become an accountant, switched gears. I've been a realtor for now about 14 years. And the last couple of years have started to go back to the personal finance stuff, which has been really interesting. And so I think it just came from seeing people, you get really close as a realtor to families and just seeing that there's more to it, right? Like, selling them a house is great, and helping them invest in their own future through housing is great. But there's so much more, right? There's all the other financial stuff that comes with it, and often the emotional side of it, right? There's the stress of money. There's maybe getting an inheritance, not knowing what to do with that. How do you teach your kids about money? There's so much more. And so, my husband and I have done well in life, and we just, really want to always be focused on how can we help other people in whatever capacity that looks like. And obviously now with COVID, there's so many opportunities, but I think that's kind of where the drive and the need has been, just to be able to help other people, and coming full circle to the money aspect.
Well, great story. And so when you started your own business, so I like to ask people how the reality matched what their expectations. But I guess you kind of had, well, were you really clear about what that was going to look like with parents and grandparents that had all started their own business?
Well, I think that I maybe had more confidence than I should have because it's all you see growing up, right? So I didn't have parents saying, no, you better go back to having a good career and you can retire with a good pension one day. I didn't have that, because they also didn't have that, right? They were just full blown into working hard, working long hours. You do what it takes, right? So when I got into real estate, I had just my first child, and I was on maternity leave. And that was kind of the time when I started thinking, okay, I got to do something else here. So I became a mortgage broker for 1 year, and then switched into becoming a realtor. But I guess it was actually my second child, but he was in the little carrier on the ground. I remember him, and I was studying away and taking all the courses and stuff. And so kind of got rolling when he was, just 6 months old, but just decided, what, this is going to work out one way or another. Leading into it, it was sort of that, there's so many different realtors out there. And I think that that's with any business, right? There's always lots of competition out there, and even more now, you could say, because, everything's so virtual, right? You can hire a coach, you could hire a money coach anywhere. It's anywhere in the world, really, right? And but it's really just focusing in on what makes you special, right? What is going to draw people to you, and just really focusing on that, because you got to just stay so focused nowadays because there's so many distractions out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's key.
Yeah, and it's not so easy. As you say, it's very easy to compare yourself, to think, oh, there are so many other people doing what I do, my ideas, or someone else has already taken it away. But no one quite does it your way. No one quite has your vision. No one quite has your experience to bring to that. And there are people who will really resonate with you and be so at home with the way you do it, and they just will not get on with other people doing something similar, because they just have very different values, different vision, different goals from life. So
Yeah.
it's horses for courses, as they say. And I always like to remind myself whenever I slip into that thinking that, I don't know anyone who doesn't have a bed, yet within like 40 minutes drive or where I live, there are so many opportunities to buy a bed. So
Right.
if there's that many bed shops, there can be even more coaches and shoe consultants or whatever is your thing.
Right.
There's a space for you and people looking for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone has a different personality. I think that's such a key thing too, right? Like, as when you're just starting a business, you think, okay, everybody could be, right? Everybody could be my client. But then you realize later on, it's so important to really work with people who resonate with you and who you resonate with too, because those connections can be so strong and so deep. And that's where you end up getting more of the referrals, and business is just fun when you have great people that you're working with.
Yeah. And I think particularly as a coach or a consultant, or especially a coach, because you work so closely with people, you really, my clients don't really feel like clients. They just feel like great friends. And they come in, you work with them, but they never really leave. There's always a part of you that's thinking of them. You're always connected. So yeah, having that special connection is really important. So you can have the right impact on their life, and they can have you learn. I think you learn and grow through every client as well, but having
Mm-hmm.
that joy as well creates something special between you and enables you to always work at your best as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned a little bit there about mindset, that you had this mindset that, well, that this is the way it is, and you didn't really. A lot of people struggle to move from a corporate mindset where you're given the framework to work within, and then to go and create your own frameworks, your own way of working, and give yourself permission to do things the way you want to, and be who you want to be. I guess you didn't necessarily have that constraint coming and you had a really positive mindset going in. But are there any areas that you did find a struggle that were a little bit surprising?
Yeah, I think, again, when the market is so big that anybody could be your client, then you struggle a little bit with, like, where do I even start? I
Mm.
think that I remember sitting in my chair in my office and just thinking, okay, I have to do something right now. And I'm not sure what to do, but I'm just going to start phoning people and phoning people and phoning people. And so that was kind of my focus, was just the sales part. And I knew sales were important. And so that's, again, what I coach now with people. I do money coaching with people on a personal level, but I also do some sales training with people, and new automatically people who are just starting in small business kind of come to me too. So I'm sure you find that too. It's not really just their business, but everything kind of comes together, right? So but when people are sort of like, where do you start? Sales is obviously number one, but yet you can, again, get so distracted in, like, I got to have a nice Facebook page. I have to have beautiful photos, and I got to have the nice website. And where should I be spending money on advertising and all these different things? But, it's the people that and that trust you already and that love you already. And again, you have that great personality fit with them. Those are the people that you want to start with. But so often we're scared to start with the people we know, because that's, we feel like we're inauthentic, or we haven't proven ourselves yet. So we want to have success before we go to the people that we know. But yet it's the opposite. It's a mindset shift again, where we have to know those are the people you got to go to first.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, they already know you, you have some kind of connection with them. And I'm always telling those who are starting out in business that, you know, getting your first handful of clients is easy because they are already watching you, waiting to be able to work with you. And I've had that with, I started 3 different businesses now, and every single time, as soon as I've gone to my network and saying, this is what I'm doing now, this is how I'm working, this is who I'm working with, and can I work with you? They're like, yeah, brilliant, let's get started. And it's been just so easy to get those initial clients. Then getting those clients in consistently, that's where the challenge comes in. But having those early clients will teach you what people value most about your services, and what needs to go on your website, how you approach social media, which platform you should be on, what kind of things people want to connect with in your content marketing, all of these things. So it's much better, as you say, not to jump in with all these pretty pictures and getting everything perfect, but just get your clients first. Then when you have a business and you know what you're doing and you know what's worked and you've tested things a little bit, then by all means go out and get your website and your social media so that you can build the consistency and get those next pipeline of clients. But yeah, I think people quite often jump in too soon into to things like advertising and waste a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, they really have something to funnel people into. So much better just to get started, get out there, get some clients. It's
Yeah. And I try to always make the sales calls first. So at 9 o'clock, you know, I just kind of waited till 9 a.m. because that's sort of, you know, I don't want to bug people too early. And we didn't really have social media as much back then either, 14 years ago. But, you know, I would start with just, okay, I got to call 10 people, or I got to get a hold of 10 people before I do anything else. And then I would just force myself to get that done. And then after that, it was like, okay, now the next thing is, let's look at, okay, what kind of advertising do I want to do out there? How do I want to promote myself? And then the next thing, right? So I would just kind of go through all the pieces of the business, because when you're an entrepreneur, there's so much that you're juggling, right? You got all these different balls that you got to keep in the air. So I just tried to do a little bit of each thing. Get the calls done first, and then get this done, and then get that done, and try and just look at one project, right? So if it's getting an e-newsletter put together or a website, like, again, if you're trying to do a little bit of each, nothing gets done. So just get for January, get the e-newsletter done, and then you can feel the progress, right? And then for February, now I'm going to start working on my website, and then just get that project done, right? So just trying to break it into little pieces, and then slowly tackle one thing, and then you feel so good because you're getting this stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I forget who says it, but it's been, I think, attributed to so many people over the years, that we underestimate how much we can get done in a year and overestimate how much we can get done in a day. But I like to break things into like 90-day projects, and then break things down and make sure that I'm just focusing on the tasks that will get me to that project. And then when you have something completed behind you, then that really takes you to the next one. And it's just such a great feeling of accomplishment. But otherwise you have this tendency to just leave a trail, started things, nothing quite finished, and you never quite feel that you're making progress, because you probably aren't if you're not being that. But breaking things down, if it ever feels overwhelming, just break it down a bit smaller is great advice.
Yeah. And then with those sales calls, then like that's just the beginning, right? And then you've got the follow-up calls, and then you're getting people through your funnel, you know, and you're making some sales, and then you've got the past clients, right? So I think too, there's this misconception out there that you never have to prospect after you've made it, you know, and whether that's in coaching or as a realtor or whatever business it is, like, okay, well, one day I'll be big enough that I can be like them, and they don't have to do that stuff anymore. But you still have to continually get new clients and talk to the past clients and follow up with people. And none of that ever goes away.
No, I guess just when you get to a point, you can outsource that if it's not the part that you particularly enjoy, but you can't stop that, as you say. If you stop, then your pipeline stops.
Yeah.
So you talked about sales calls, which I know is a lot of people have got their hair standing up on their arms already
Yeah.
just at the thought of making a sales call. But is there still a role in sales calls today where everything is digital, everything's online? Do you still think people, do they pick up the phone?
I think that calling is so important. And I think again, if we're thinking of people that we know, it doesn't have to be, like a sales call back in the 80s was grabbing the phone book and calling every single person until you got somebody. And that's what people think it is. But, if we look at times like now, what we're going through with COVID, connection is so important with people, right? And just trying to make sure that, people that are getting through this and that they're not, struggling with mental health issues and stuff like that. And sales calls, if you think of it, is just connecting. So change your mindset again a little bit about that. But when you hear that word, yeah, I know people cringe, but just connecting with people. So how can you connect with somebody? And again, when people want to do business with somebody, it's somebody that they know, they like, and they trust. And so just being a good human goes a long way in this world. And if you could continually add value to somebody, show up, ask people how they're doing, you're already light years ahead of your competition in a lot of businesses. So just get out there and actually care about people and show that you care, and the rest works itself out.
I love that. Just be a good human. I think we forget as well. And when we look at a lot of the ads on Facebook, particularly if you're in a business owner, or there's so much like, yeah, do this, follow this process, and you'll be a millionaire tomorrow.
Oh yes.
But I think there's that counterculture, and a lot more people now are starting to push back on that and say it doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right for you, it certainly doesn't feel right for your prospect or your client. So I love that concept of just being a good human, caring about people, having that connection. And you're so right. I really see now people looking for much more connection. And I'm in a few sort of business networks, and
Mhm.
people don't want the network anymore. They want to spend more time getting to really know real people
Yeah.
rather than just having a broad network. And so I think that's a really nice change, and a
Hmm.
big opportunity as well if you're willing to take that little bit of extra time and attention to make those real connections.
Yeah. Yeah. And like anything, I always like call it a funnel, right? And so sometimes we talk about a sales funnel and how you're going to sort of lead people on. But if you think of an actual funnel, you got to put a lot of people in and then you don't get as many out the bottom, right? But you could think of that as networking too. I can reach out to 10 different people and maybe one will be a connection that's going to be an amazing connection that's going to help my business, right? Or that I can really add value to them. But again, we think, well, whoever we're going to try and connect with is going to want to connect with us, or that it's going to be amazing. And it won't. It's just how it is, right? Not every connection is going to be a strong one. So we have to really just know that you're going to have to spend some time, but it's worth it to find a great connection where you can refer to them, they can refer to you, and now your business is blooming, right? And exploding, but it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to focus in on that quality, because if you just have like a large quantity in your network, you can't possibly look after those connections. And that's
Yeah.
what it takes to build a strong network. It's not just adding people to LinkedIn and rubbing like wiping your hands of it. You have to stay in touch with the people and follow them and see how you can add value and support them. And then they're there for you when you need support in return. It takes, as you say, it takes time.
Yeah.
So it's much better to focus in on that quality than just try and contact everybody. And it doesn't ever come across as authentic or fun that way either.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and when you've got a key group of people that you really love, it's easy. Again, it's not hard to do a sales call or a connection call. It's like, I haven't talked to them in forever. Like, I gotta call them up. It's gonna be, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And those kinds of people you can just pick up with, and it's like you were just talking yesterday
Yeah,
because you've
exactly.
got that great connection.
Well, it's a bit like as on this podcast. So I was on your podcast more than, well, just over a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
But we had such a great connection. We've kind of followed each other ever since, and it's been
Yeah.
really great to pick up. And it doesn't feel like a year's passed at all. It's when you have those connections, they're always there for you in different ways, and it's
Yeah.
great to have a great feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it comes to business, what are there any things that you see people typically getting wrong or misunderstanding?
I think the biggest thing is that everybody thinks that this is going to be way easier than it is. And so before you start in business, I think you have to know, or you got to be sure that you can withstand, how long it's going to take. Like, so people think this will just happen overnight. Or again, sometimes the advertising that is out there is misleading. So it's like, get your business started in 30 days or something like that. And it takes a long time, and it takes more money than you think. It takes more time than you think. And, you're probably what you expect you're going to have to do, you're going to have to double up on. So if you think, okay, I can put out a few ads, you'll probably have to do way more ads than you think. You'll have to do way more connections than you think. So do you have enough resources available? Are your finances pretty set that you can go through that time period of getting things started? And if you're in a relationship, I always say, like, that person's got to be really on board. Because again, if you say, hey, I'm going to get this going in 30 days and it starts taking longer, and now you have pressure from your partner, like, why is this not happening? Then it just adds to the pressure that you have, and it mounts, and you just haven't set things up well enough ahead of time. So again, that planning is so key.
Yeah. And I think that's also that planning, but also coming back to what you were saying about network, that's where you can get a lot of support too, because
Yeah.
for a lot of us, our partner is very supportive, but they have never run a business. So they don't really understand what it takes or what you're going through. And so if you have people in your network that you can turn to as well who've gone through this, then that is like priceless.
Yeah. 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 And your partner and your friends, they're not supposed to be your sounding board, but it's very easy to make them your sounding board. And yeah, so when they kind of are not really responding, or they aren't there for you in ways that somebody else would be who's been through it, then it's frustrating. It's like, oh, my friends don't care, or my spouse doesn't care. But it's not that they don't care, but that's not the role that they asked to take on, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a key one too, to kind
Yeah.
of keep those relationships separate.
I like that point that you made there, because it's something that I experienced. I felt quite isolated at first because, yeah, I was turning to my friends, and they didn't get it. They were either working in an office and always have done, or they were stay-at-home moms, and so they just couldn't relate to what I was doing at all. And so they would do what they could, but it wasn't what I needed. And so, and then I've just felt quite alone. I was like, gosh, I have the wrong friends, and it wasn't that at all. And what I've learned is, as you say, your friends don't play that role. They're there to help you switch off, have fun, have that downtime when you don't think about your business, which is a really important role for them to play, and you definitely need that. But it can take time sometimes to get people in the right places, but I think understanding that it took me a long time to understand that, actually. But I think that's a really important point.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to money and financial planning, is there a point in the business where people should start with that, or is it something that they should always have an eye on in their business? How do you see the money factor?
I think that the years fly by. Like, I'm going to be married 20 years next year. And I'm like, how did that even happen? Right? The years just fly by. And so it's so important to get an early start on this stuff. And that's another really important point when people are starting their businesses. They think, oh, I'm only going to have to sell this much, and that'll cover all the expenses, and I can put some money away for retirement. But the expenses creep up. There's always surprise expenses that we don't account for, or different subscriptions that we need, or suddenly we're got to go to that conference that's, outside of our country maybe, and stuff like that, where you just didn't think of that, day one, right? So the saving for retirement and things like that, or for the growth of your business, or maybe different equipment you're going to need, or moving into a bigger office space or production space, depending what your business is. All of those things always take more resources than we account for, and retirement too. So starting early, and again, accounting for that stuff in the beginning is going to be important. So if you think I'm going to need this many sales, you're going to need a lot more to cover off that other stuff. So don't forget about retirement, or saving for healthcare, depending which country you're in, and things like that that come up. Braces for kids, right? All this different stuff that comes up that we got to pay for. So planning from day one for a lot of those big things, it's not fun, but it's way more effective to make sure that they're covered.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a reoccurring theme in this podcast, is like just how important planning is. And it isn't sexy, but
No.
so important to have that planning, your financial planning in place. And as you say, the costs creep up so much. And particularly when you take your business online, you think, oh, online is free. And it definitely isn't.
Yeah.
So many different little subscriptions, and it's like $10 here, $50 there, and yeah, very quickly it mounts up quickly. So keeping an eye on those numbers is so important.
Yeah.
And I can't carry on without coming back to 4 kids. You've got 4 kids and you're building a business. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so a lot of planning, a lot of planning. So basically in the morning, that's kind of what my husband and I do. We're like, okay, who needs to go where? Do we need food? Everyone's clothed, not to that extent, but almost. So yeah, it's a lot of planning of who's where, and having a support system is huge. So especially when the kids were younger, now they're a little more self-sufficient as they get older, but when they're young and you got to be there for everything, it's key, right? You got to make sure someone's picking them up on time and all that kind of stuff. So planning is so important. Sunday night, I'd plan out the whole week, making sure we've got, again, the household stuff covered, but also the business, that if the week looks empty, I got to book myself busy, right? So who am I connecting with, and making sure that that's covered, but also just the day-to-day stuff. Who's going where? Do we need help on certain days? When? Lining everything up so you just feel like the week is kind of planned out. And then when the emergency stuff comes up, just to make sure that somebody's available just in case, right? But the more support that you have, the better. And again, maybe that's not your spouse. Maybe you've got to trade off with a friend. I think, again, if we could help each other out when the kids are young and you need babysitters and stuff, can you find a different person, friend, mom, whoever it is, another business owner, where you can switch off and get some dedicated time to just work through some stuff, and then you take their kids for a different shift. Like, just don't put yourself in a box, but just, where do you need help, and then source it out, figure it out.
Yeah. And I was always surprised. I mean, in my first business, when the kids were tiny and my husband was traveling, I didn't ask for help. And it, yeah, I very nearly burned out. Thankfully, I didn't quite get to that stage, and it was a friend that stepped in and saw that I was just I was at the schoolyard and ready to pick up the kids for lunch, and I had a phone call, and it was just someone asking something really small, but it was just that one thing too many. I just couldn't cope and just started bawling out, like crying. And thankfully she just got in the car and she said, go home, take whatever rest. I'll take the kids, I'll bring them back to school, I'll take them off to school, whatever you need, just take the time. And I'm so grateful for her stepping in. But then it made me realize I do need to ask for help. And when I did, everyone was like, yeah, we'd love to. And we always thought, how can we help? But we didn't know. And so there's people waiting to help you. And people, I mean, if we think about how we feel when people ask for help, we really enjoy supporting our friends, right? So we shouldn't be backwards in asking for that help. It's really, really important. Or finding like the teenagers that can help with babysitting and love playing and crawling around the floor that we don't take anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that that's, again, another step that or a tip that I would give people is, when you're starting your business, to already be thinking of who's the first person I would hire. Because you want to, again, be putting your mindset as I'm going to need help. I'm going to need to hire somebody, right? And again, that starts to build into how you're running your business. But maybe that is a bookkeeper. Maybe you're like, I don't want to touch any bookwork. And that's your first person you hire. Maybe it's a house cleaner. Maybe it's a babysitter. So you get that dedicated time to work. Everybody's different. So sort of start thinking about that. And if you're already running your business, who's the next person you want to hire?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very often asked like, well, how do you do it all? And my answer is, I don't.
Me neither.
There's a lot that I don't do. There's a lot of things I just gave up being guilty about a long time ago. And I made sure I had help for the kids. I had someone to help with the cleaning, because I just think that's the biggest waste of my time and I hate it.
Yeah.
Cleaning windows, I don't mind that because they kind of stay clean for a little while, but the rest,
Yeah.
get it. And then getting a bookkeeper, because that's not my happy time. And then outside sourcing all the kind of maintenance with my social media, and bit by bit, as you grow, get the help. And it just makes all the difference.
Yeah. And if your business starts from when your kids are young, it's actually a blessing, even though it can feel like it's so hard, but that's all your kids know. But it's very different when you start a little bit later and now they're like, what are you doing? Like, we're used to you being home after work, right? And things like that. So it's a struggle when they're babies, but it's also a blessing that they grow with you, with your business. But yeah, I just try as much as possible to make it a team effort. So, okay, guys, we all got to pitch in today. What's our day look like? And where are you helping out? Okay, you're making lunch, you're doing the dishes, you're doing some laundry. Next thing you know, right? Now, granted, I've got many kids, but if everyone can work together, then they all benefit from the time we have off when we go on vacation, but we all work together to get there. So it's teaching them good skills. Now, again, don't have the mom guilt of like, oh, my kids have to work and the rest, my friends' kids, they don't have to work like mine. Just ditch all that and do what works for you in your own house.
Yeah. And that comes back to what you were saying at the beginning with your business. Just don't compare with everyone else. Focus in on what works for you, for your family, what your values are and what you're trying to create, and focus in on that. And it's the same with your family, if not more so, I think sometimes than with your business, because we can get awful mum guilt and really comparing yourself to that mum that turns up at school with all this home baked stuff and
Yeah.
a bag of crisps. But yeah, it's but and I just built my business around my kids. When my eldest was 5 months old, that's when I got started. And it's totally, that's the norm for them, but they love it as well. They feel so proud because my business is their business. They've been part of it. They help in various different ways and unhelp as well. It's great. I mean, I've tried to involve them as much as possible, and they've built some amazing entrepreneurial skills, which I think are just great life skills as well.
Yeah.
Always having this growth mindset where, okay, things take longer, as you were saying earlier. Nothing, you will fail, things won't go right, there will be times where you're just like but that's okay. Tomorrow's another day, it will be better, you learn from it. And I think these are just great experiences to share with your kids.
Yeah. And you just build resilient kids, right? It's just like going through COVID. Is it fun? No. Are there people struggling? Of course. It's been difficult for everybody. But if you have had to adjust and pivot and stuff, I think entrepreneurs, not all, but in general, that's what we do all day long, right? So now it's like, okay, COVID comes and what's this going to be? And you sort of step back and you're like, okay, what might happen? What could happen? No different than any other challenge that comes up. Now, obviously, this is a very big challenge and it's affected some businesses, in devastating ways. I'm not downplaying that in any way, but and mental health has become a massive problem for a lot of people. So it's not a good thing by any means. However, as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to figure out what's the next thing that we need to do. How are we going to change this? How can we reduce our expenses there or increase our profitability? So it's just one more thing, right? And, again, I wonder if part of my kids being pretty resilient through this whole thing has been that they've seen us constantly pivoting almost every day, right? What needs to happen today? So yeah, I think it's just another example of how kids can become really resilient through having you as an entrepreneur, as a mom.
Yeah, and I think that's key because we don't know what life is going to be like for our kids. I was a friend is a headmaster, and he was saying, 80% of the jobs our kids have don't exist today.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare them for that? And he was saying it's all about great communications, collaboration, problem solving, resilience, which is all what we learn as being entrepreneurs. So it's a great start for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
Candice, you have shared so much valuable advice. I've really enjoyed speaking with you again. Before we wrap up, is there any last standout pieces of advice that you would like to leave for the listeners?
I would say communication is key, and it comes back all the time. And I know that you talk a lot about this too in what you do. But if you're struggling in your relationship, due to running a business or the challenges of that, get a relationship coach to help you guys through that, right? Your relationship is not worth giving up for your business. So if you're struggling with your health, find a coach to help you with that. And whatever struggle it is, there's always a way to get through it. But sometimes we just have to be able to look past ourselves, and we need that help, right? So when you're dealing with a relationship, it's hard because you're talking to this person all the time, and sometimes you just need that other person to facilitate better communication. So whatever the point is of struggle, whether that's an employee in yourself not maybe having the best communication, or customers, maybe there's some struggles there, just know that there's always help out there, and you just need to ask. But communication is key to be able to find that success that you're looking for in any area of life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really believe that whatever your goals in life, communication is the key to success. You always need to be selling yourself in one way or another, selling your ideas, getting people on side, you need that collaboration. You can't succeed on your own. It's just impossible. And so you need those strong communications to attract the right people to you, and to give the right brief, have everyone following the same path, and working towards the same goal, and enjoying that process as well. It's sometimes there's a quote that I love, which is if I can remember it now, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So sometimes to get the communications right, it does take a bit of time. You have to take the longer route. And sometimes you're tempted to think, oh, it would be quicker to do it myself. But if you take that bit of extra time and build out your team, take the time to be really clear. And if things aren't working, to take that on yourself, to recognize, okay, if they're not getting the message, it's not that they're stupid, it's probably that I'm not putting that message together in a way that's connecting with them. So take that responsibility. It always works out better that way, and figure it out and learn. But yeah, communication, so important. Thank you for raising that.
Yeah, no problem.
So for anyone that's listening to the show, I'm going to put all of your details, your links to your different so they can continue the conversation with you if they want to. And I believe you offer a free consultation to anyone that's listening and wants to know more about how they can get a better hold on their finances or in real estate as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So being a realtor, I've also done some real estate investing. So whether it's personal finance or some business stuff that you're kind of struggling with, or if you have always wondered how to buy rental properties, whatever it looks like, just give me a call, and I'd love to have a conversation and help you get to that next level for yourself.
Fantastic, thank you. And for anyone who's out doing the school run, or standing there freezing on the soccer playing field, how can they get in touch with you?
So the easiest is just online. So you could just check out investorsmarts.ca.
Perfect. Thanks again, Candice. It's been great speaking with you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Take care.